If you've been dealing with nagging deep hip pain for years and you've tried physical therapy, massages, chiropractic work, and stretching, but the pain always comes right back the moment you sit the trot, you are treating the wrong problem. What's the truth? Pain is never where the problem is. Your hip hurts, so you stretch your hip. But your hip is just the victim. It's like the check engine light. And until you find the root cause of the dysfunction, you are just managing symptoms forever. So what's the root cause? Well, your body has developed a massive asymmetry because one of your glutes may be completely non-functional. Your hip flexors and your TFL are working overtime to stabilize your pelvis. They're doing a job they were never designed to do, which is why they are chronically overloaded and screaming in pain. Whether you're an amateur dressage rider who just wants to ride pain-free or a professional who can't figure out why the horse keeps drifting to the right, this is the exact mechanism holding you back. Today, I'm going to show you exactly how one of our clients, Jen, ended 5 years of hip pain by fixing her asymmetry. I'm Coach Sando, an equestrian sports performance coach. Let's find your root cause. But before we do that, can you do me a favor? Like, save, and subscribe to this channel if you get value from it. All right, let's get to it. Now, when dealing with finding the root cause of problems, there is a flawed approach, a fundamental problem in the equestrian world. What is it? Well, everyone is always really concerned about only treating the source of pain or the site of pain. When you go to any professional that helps you with this stuff, they're always just treating where you're in pain, but it's very difficult for them to find out why that happens. Because they're in a clinical setting, it's really difficult for them to find the time to take you through the proper protocols to be able to understand what you're doing, especially when it comes to riders in the saddle that could be exacerbating a movement asymmetry, causing your pain. And so that's what we are trying to do, is develop protocols and procedures to make sure that we are very good at finding the why before we start treating it with all our exercises. Now, I want to talk about our client, Jen. Now, Jen is a upper level dressage rider, certified instructor, has been riding for years, but she has been dealing with severe hip pain for over 5 years. She heard me speak at a conference about our assessment process and made it a point to schedule an assessment that very day and drove the following few days in a 3-hour snowstorm to get her assessment. That alone showed me her commitment to trying to find a solution and how desperate she was. When we were talking about her hip, she was telling me all the things that she had tried, the pain that she was in from day to day, and the mindset that she was in, which was one of just, it is what it is. This is what riding is going to feel like, and nothing can change. Well, we went ahead and did the assessment. We did a 3-phase assessment that started with a postural assessment. Then we did a movement assessment, and then overall strength evaluation. And what we found was that she was dealing, yes, with hip pain, but it was due to lack of muscle groups not performing the way they should. She had gotten into these compensatory patterns that were causing that hip pain. So then we made a plan. Let's start addressing those compensatory patterns, give her some better movement skills, and then see what would happen. Because we weren't guessing, we had data to guide our efforts, to guide our programming. We were not surprised that Jen got the results that she did. We were surprised in the amount of time that it took. In 1 month, Jen was reporting to us that she was starting to find relief in her pain. She was reporting that she was able to ride in her client's saddle that she had never been able to do without pain. So we knew we were on the right track. So after a 3-month period, we did retest, and what we found was amazing. Jen had not only been out of pain now for a few weeks. When we got the results back, her movement analysis that we do with the 3D camera showed that she was improving her squat by over 100% as far as the metrics that we use to guide us in the direction of her movement capabilities. She was no longer having pain, so her range of motion in her squat was a lot better. She wasn't compensated by shifting over to the pain side, so now she was squatting even which she could feel when she was riding her horses because they were all going a lot straighter, were moving bigger, and she was really happy with the production of the horse since she had been doing this training program. And it was all because we weren't guessing. We were actually doing what the body needed in order to improve her movement patterns off the saddle that were transferring over to the saddle. And that is one of the biggest things that riders do not see. They spend a lot of time training, working out for fitness, which is a great component to do to start off with. But if you have a specific problem, general strategies will not fix that specific problem. You need to match it with specific strategies to fix that specific problem. If you're asking, well, what did you work on with Jen to get the results that she had? What we did was connect the dots. We noticed that her right glute med and all the surrounding musculatures were all very weak. You would say like asleep or not activated. They just were bound by the movement patterns that she was doing. So the body had created this compensation, and that compensation then created the pain. So we started strengthening her TFL muscles, her hip flexors on the other side that were not working well and causing a lot of overuse injuries in the pain side, which was her right hip. And once we started to put together what was missing from her movement program or her movement strategies, it was easy for us to produce a program that only focused on her moving in patterns that were going to alleviate the right side hip pain and strengthen the left side so that she could find better movement strategies in the saddle, which is predominantly what was causing the movement hip pain. Now, I want to talk about the exact protocol that we used to help Jen out. But before we look at that exact protocol we used to fix Jen's hip, we need to find out if you have that exact asymmetry. So what I want you to do right now is stand up, grab your phone, put it on something like a tripod, or you know what I do? I have my clients put it in a shoe facing the heel and then put the shoe somewhere. That way you can have something to record you. Let's do a quick assessment. Now, the exercise that we're going to use for this assessment is very simple. It's going to be an overhead body weight squat exercise. Now, here's the setup. I want you to grab your phone and I want you to put it in front of you, and that you have enough space to obviously record all of you, especially when your hands are over your head. You're going to video yourself doing 3 repetitions of this exercise. The first one is going to be facing the camera. The second one is going to be turning to either your right or left side and getting a profile view of your squat. And then the third one is going to be facing away from your camera phone and recording one with the back towards your phone. Now, here are the tips for the execution of this assessment. I want you to perform each squat slow. I would say count to 4 as you're squatting down into your squat, and then you can stand up with a little bit more urgency. Here are some rules though. Make sure that you're going down to a range of motion that is comfortable for you. So no going past any pain points. Number 2, when you're doing this exercise, make sure that your camera is facing exactly in the same direction you are. If you're a little bit off, it's going to be difficult for you to see some of the results that I'll be pointing out to look for. So make sure that you are exactly straight to your camera phone. A pro tip is to record yourself in slow motion. That way you can really see what's going on when you're squatting. Now, it's going to be sometimes mind-blowing because you never look at yourself with these lenses, if you will, as far as looking at how you're performing these movement patterns. So what does a passing overhead squat look like? It's all about symmetry. When you're looking at your videos, can you tell that you're squatting straight up and down? If you can, awesome. What does a fail score look like, or a fail squat look like? There's a couple of points. Number 1, we are looking for asymmetries. You'll find asymmetries in movement patterns because you start swaying or shifting your weight from left to right. That's number 1. Number 2, you can see that your hip is hiking from one side to the other. So you might even see like a little collapsing on your rib cage. So we're looking for that, where the pelvis starts becoming a little bit uneven. And the third one, this one you'll be able to see from the profile view is that when you're squatting, that you're noticing like a little bit of postural movement where your shoulders start moving forward, causing your spine to round and possibly tucking your hips too far under your shoulders. Those three things, if you see any movement, would be considered a fail. If you failed that test, or if you noticed a massive difference between your left and your right side, that could be your root cause. If it is, here is the exact 3-step protocol we use to wake up Jen's glutes, fix her asymmetry, and to get her out of pain. The first exercise that I want to take you over in Jen's protocol is what we call the single leg glute bridge with hip abduction. The goal is to make sure that we are activating not only the glutes from the stability work that we're doing with the glute bridge, but as you're abducting, can you get the glute med to fire in both the leg that you'll see moving away from the body and then the stability leg that we're using for our glute bridge? So let's go over the setup. The setup is going to be a standard glute bridge position. And what we always ask people to focus on is making sure that you have good pelvic control. So you're going to take a deep breath, and when you breathe out, you're going to roll your hips under your shoulders. Once you roll your hips under your shoulders, your low back should be flat on the ground. That is very important for you to understand how to stabilize your pelvis. Once your pelvis is stable, then you can squeeze your glutes and come up to this glute bridge. Once you're in this glute bridge position, you're going to extend your leg, take another deep breath, breathe out, and try to abduct. That means push it away from your middle of the body and squeeze the glute on your working leg here and squeeze the glute on your stability leg. Back to the middle, rest, and then back down. So there was a lot of moving parts there, and the most important part is breathing. So I'm going to take a deep breath in, and then as I'm breathing out, I'm going to roll the hips, get myself set up here. I'm going to take another deep breath, and then I'm going to breathe out, squeezing my glutes. And then again, another deep breath, extend my leg, and then breathe out, abduct my leg, move it away from me. When I'm done with breathing out, I can go back to the middle, down and down. You want to do about 8 to 10 repetitions. You're focusing on taking your time and understanding the breath work that goes along with that. Because if you're breathing well, you're going to stabilize your spine, your pelvis, which is going to allow you to activate those glutes properly. It's not just about doing the exercise and trying to move muscles. You have to have the structures, the bone structures stable so that the muscles can move effectively. So take your time through the breathing and make sure that you're feeling those muscles work. So a Sando cue for you is to take your thumbs during that exercise. I'm gonna lay down one more time. And as you're going through the movement, feel what's going on. Can you feel that muscle? Okay. How about on the other side, on the down leg? Can you touch and feel your muscles work? Because if you can get that proprioception, that feel that your muscles are active, that's going to help your brain understand a little bit better how to activate those muscles. All right, let's go to exercise number 2. The second exercise that we're going to go over is a strength building exercise. So we just got done activating some muscles. Now let's really work on strengthening the glutes, but in a very specific manner. We're going to strengthen them while making sure that our pelvis is stable. And the exercise that we're going to use to do this is called the single leg RDL. It's one of my staples. Now, when you start doing this, I am going to suggest that you use a supported method to do this. So I'm going to use this rack here to support my leg movement. I'm going to show you this side first so you can see the stability that we're trying to achieve. Now, when you're doing this exercise, it's all about hinging through this exercise. That's the main goal of this movement pattern, is to understand how to hinge. Now, when you hinge, you want to push your hip back with having a soft knee bend while keeping your low back and your upper back pretty straight lined. So if you start rounding your back, then your pelvis is probably also going to round, which is going to lose its stability. So you want to make sure that you think about all of the movement coming from this joint right here. You're going to feel a hamstring pull, but you're still going to create that soft knee bend, so not locked,
just a soft knee bend. Now, when you're doing this, once you get in this hinge position, you can now start playing with extending the leg. And when you extend the leg out like this, a lot of times people will start to bring what I call this open hip position, where now your hip pointer is pointing towards the ceiling. So what is awesome about having a supported version is that you can use this for balance and you can work on closing the hip. Now we're activating the hip musculature, but also doing it in a way where both hip pointers and your belly button are pointed straight down to the ground, which is going to organize all of these hip musculatures in a way that's going to be more beneficial for riding. So in order to do this, I would say I'm going to take a deep breath in. And as I'm breathing in, I am reaching for this post, bringing my leg up. Now, when I am breathing out, I'm probably going to be set up like this. So you want to breathe out and really try to organize your pelvis in a straight line. You can take another deep breath in and breathe out when you're back here in the middle. So when you're doing this a little bit more full speed, grab, breathe in, breathe out. Make sure that your pelvis is nice and square, and then come back to the middle. Now you can do this weighted as well, but I would suggest starting with a supported version of this exercise so that you can really get down what's going on with your pelvis. If I'm holding on to this and I show you from the front, you'll see that a lot of times when people do this exercise, they'll open up this hip instead of closing it and then being able to feel the hip here work to stabilize the movement and then squeeze the glute to come back up. You want to do that exercise for about 2 to 3 sets because it's a strength building exercise, and focus on staying around 8 repetitions. Now, when you're doing the supported with no weight, you can just think about that type of exercise as a movement competency. You're trying to get very good at it before you start weighting it. Now, when you're weighting it, I would suggest you hold onto something, but you have one hand here still so that you can always be focusing on stabilizing your hip. And then what you can do is once the hip is stable, you can let go and then you can come up and then be challenged by that weight. But always start with something to help you find your stability, because once you start moving without it, it is really difficult to weight this exercise in order to get stronger without understanding about your stability, your balance. All right, exercise number 3, here we go. The third exercise is a lateral step-up exercise, which we use as an integration exercise. So what does that mean? Well, we want to make sure that we are learning how to stabilize the pelvis dynamically by stepping onto a box and being able to show control and stability throughout the whole movement. So the setup is simple. Find a low box that you can use, something very stable, and we're going to do this without any weight right now. The goal for you now is when you're stepping up to step laterally. So when you step up here, make sure that your belly button and your shoulders and your hips are all moving straight away, or they're pointing straight ahead. And when you step up, make sure that you're getting a little bit of a lean. So it's a lean and then step. We want to lean so that we can activate the glutes in that motion. Now, here's the Sando cue. The magic in this exercise is on the way down. So when you get here, I would start taking a deep breath as I'm lowering. When I'm lowering, I am focusing on pushing my hips back, reaching out with this leg, really going slow back down. How slow? About 4 seconds on the way down. So full speed, big deep breath. I'm stepping, I'm leaning. Stepping and leaning. On the way down, I'm going to count to 4. So I'm going to go big deep breath. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then back down. If you do that correctly, on the way up, because you're putting your shoulders a little forward and activating the hip, it'll stabilize to come back up. And on the way down, as you're coming down and you're controlling the movement, you're going to start getting some quad work, but also some glute work if you're pushing your hip back. When you push your hip back, you want to make sure that you can feel the stretch around the glutes and the hamstring so that it's not so much knee dominant, that it's a hip dominant exercise. So when I stand, I can really feel that movement really target here instead of moving here. So I'm feeling my glutes and hamstrings work. Do that exercise for about 2 to 3 sets, depending on the time and how your body's feeling. And this is an exercise that you can go 8 to 10 reps, because if you're doing this body weight, yes, it's going to be a little taxing, but you should be able to recover from it. Last little point, this is also a neurological exercise, meaning if you are fatigued from your brain and you feel like, I'm off, I'm not feeling my best, stay on the lower sets and rep ranges, because you want a lot of nervous system activation so that you can acquire the skill of stabilizing your pelvis dynamically. And the major lesson, that if you haven't figured it out already, is that you have to do a lot of work off the horse so your horse can actually reach its potential. There's no shortcut about it. It is very difficult for you to try to change things in the saddle and have to worry about what the horse is feeling, what their spooky brain might be going through, and try to make changes there when it is impossible to really focus on yourself. Doing work off the horse, focusing on your asymmetries, is one of the best things you can do for your horse and for yourself. Jen's story proves that you don't have to normalize pain, your hip pain, your back pain, your crookedness. These are all problems with solutions, but the solutions start with an honest assessment of where you are right now. Your horse shows up for you every single day. It's time to show up for them by making sure your body isn't the limiting factor in your partnership. If you're a serious adult AMI or professional rider who is tired of guessing and is ready to train in a structured, progressive program built specifically for equestrian athletes, click the link in the description and schedule a performance planning call with me. I hope you got a lot from this video, and I will see you in the next one.